As illustrators, we're always trying to grow and get better, and one of the best ways to do this is through a daily project. A daily project is something you plan on doing usually every day, perhaps for a set period of time like 1 month or a year. The problem is, daily projects are really hard to keep going. We often give up on them before we've really given them a chance. In this video, I'm going to give you 3 tips to help you set yourself up for success in your next daily illustration project goal. But first, welcome to the channel. My name's Tom Froese, and I'm an illustrator and top teacher on Skillshare, where I've helped over 100,000 students unlock the world of commercial illustration. If you're looking for insights and inspiration as you dream and grow as an illustrator, that's what this channel is all about. You can learn more about my classes at tomfroese.com/teaching. Today, I am super proud to say that today's video is sponsored by Astropad. I've never had a sponsor before, and I can't imagine a better product to hype first than Astropad. In my classes, many students have asked me how I'm able to use my iPad as a tablet for my Mac. The answer, of course, is Astropad Studio. Astropad Studio turns your iPad into a completely customizable drawing tablet. So what the app does is it mirrors your favorite desktop apps like Photoshop and Illustrator right on your iPad. They literally designed Astropad from the ground up for professional artists. Astropad also guarantees low latency performance over Wi-Fi or USB cable, so you can set your workspace up on the go. And low latency just means that you get real fast responsivity. So when you're drawing on your iPad, that's gonna happen right away on your desktop, and it's not gonna lag. That's a really important thing when you're working, and I've found Astropad to be totally seamless in that regard. Astropad Studio is a high performance tool for the most demanding creative work. Today, Astropad is used by major animation studios and product design firms across the globe. So if you're ready to take your creative workflow to the next level, you can start your free 30-day trial of Astropad Studio today. Visit astropad.com to get started. Thanks Astropad for sponsoring today's episode. I really appreciate it. All right, let's get on with the content. So daily projects are especially popular around the new year. This is when people are setting all kinds of goals for themselves, and they see the change of the year as a nice clean break for a fresh start. But many people will see any new month as a good starting point as well. It doesn't have to be December to January. It could be the start of February, March, etc. That's why many daily challenges are named after months. You've probably heard of Inktober, for instance. That's a super popular month-based challenge that just comes to mind. Of course, we all know that, like most resolutions, daily projects fall off for us as the year goes on and other things seem to become more important. Perhaps you're experiencing this right now. You started the year or month with big plans of drawing every day or doing an illustration every day, but somehow it fell by the wayside and it seems like you're too far gone to try to get back on the wagon. Well, first let me say it's never too late to get back on the wagon. It's never too late to return to doing good things. Get off the floor, forgive yourself, and start trying again. Each day you show up is like money in the bank. Of course, before you start trying again, set yourself up for success and make a plan. My hope is that you can use the tips in this video to plan your next daily project better, and by doing that, you'll be better set to succeed. As you're watching or listening through today's episode, I have some homework for you. In the next bit, I'm gonna list 3 reasons why our daily project goals might fail. I want you to think about the last time you set out to do a daily project and how it went. If you stopped doing your daily project, please let me know in the comments why. Did it have to do with any of the points that I mentioned here, or was it something else? Okay, so let's just get into it. So let's start by talking about why we might fail on our goals to do a daily project. I think the biggest reason for failure is that we weren't specific enough about our goal. For instance, maybe you said you'd draw every day, but you didn't exactly say what that would look like specifically. If you're not clear about what your daily goals are, how will you know if you've achieved them? Another big reason our daily projects fall through is that we're too ambitious. We set goals that are too big. They're not sustainable. For instance, maybe you said you'd go outside and draw an outside scene every day. That's nice and specific, but maybe you don't like going outside that much, and this becomes a barrier to actually getting out there and doing what you really wanted to do in the first place, which is drawing. So sure, maybe you'd like to get better at drawing urban scenes and you'd like to do more of that, but maybe that's something you can do as a single project versus something you feel like you have to do every single day. The question is, what can you draw every day without such obstacles? What can you do that's sustainable? One more reason that causes us to fall off the daily project wagon is that we stop seeing the point. Why bother with a daily project at all? Why make all the effort? Why sacrifice those precious moments of the day when there's so many other things competing for our time and attention? When our daily projects are more than just doing the project, when they're about something bigger, some bigger purpose we have, we'll have more of a reason to keep going every day. When resistance hits hard, we can always remind ourselves of why showing up is so important. Without a bigger purpose, we truly should ask ourselves what the point is. What's the point of doing a daily project if it's not tied to some bigger goal? A daily project should not feel like discipline. It should feel absolutely necessary. So I've given you 3 reasons why our daily projects fall off. So they lack specificity, they're not sustainable, and they lack a sense of purpose. But knowing these things is only half of the story. The other half, of course, is knowing what to do about them. So coming up next, I'm going to give you 3 positive, actionable strategies to counter these more negative points. And this will help you set up your daily projects in such a way that you can truly commit to them and grow from the discipline. So the first tip is to be specific about your goal. I mentioned that one of the reasons we fall off the daily project wagon is that we lack specificity. Without a clear goal, it's hard to know what we're aiming for and whether we're on or off the mark. In archery practice, having a target is everything. Otherwise, you're just shooting at the breeze. You may get some satisfaction from flinging arrows into the air, but you'll never know if you're getting any better. How's your aim getting? Are you actually becoming a better marksman? For our daily projects, we need to be specific about what we'll be making. The more specific it is, the more likely we will be to actually do it. When someone asks what you're doing for your daily project, it should be easy to describe. I'm drawing a car every day, or I'm going to paint a different woodland creature every Tuesday. Then, just like you'd know if the arrow hit the target or not, you could confidently say, I drew a car today, or I painted a woodland creature on Tuesday. Done. You can check that off your list. Maybe your goal is not to draw anything in particular, but simply to draw for a set period of time. My own goal this year is to draw for 5 minutes every day. If I show up and draw for 5 minutes, I can check that off my list. The importance of being specific about what you will make is that it means you'll spend less time deliberating what to make each time you come to your desk. This actually reminds me of my own experience in working out. I absolutely hate working out. There's nothing I'd rather do than skip a workout. Except there's that pesky bit about how if I don't work out, I won't be as strong and as healthy, and I want to be stronger and healthier. But even still, when it's workout day, the resistance is super strong. But if I know ahead of time what my workout will be for the day, I'm gonna be more likely to just go and do it. I spend less time dithering about which is the perfect workout, and I just get it over with. Hopefully you'll enjoy doing your project every day a lot more than I enjoy working out, but it's the same principle at work. When you know what you're going to make each day, that's one less barrier between you and getting it done. So when planning your daily project, ask yourself, what specifically will you be making every day? What kind of subject will you focus on? What is the format? Is it in your sketchbook or something you create digitally? What will your go-to media type be? Will you be using one kind of pen or pencil or experimenting with different types of media? Another important question to ask is how you'll share what you make. Will it be a photo, a scan, or something created purely in digital format, for instance, maybe on Procreate? So like I mentioned, this year I set out to draw something every day just to get back into the practice and habit of drawing. To make this goal more specific, I decided to make some constraints. I'm going to draw for 5 minutes. I'm just going to use pencil. I'm going to draw it in my sketchbook, and I'm going to share it to a dedicated Instagram account that I call Drawing is Important. If you're interested in seeing how my daily drawing project progresses, I'm going to leave a link to that Instagram account in the video description. Okay, so the second tip is to make your daily project sustainable. Make it something you can do for the long term. It's all well and good to know what your goal is and what you're going to make, but if that goal is too big, you won't be able to keep doing it for very long. When setting your daily project goal, be sure to keep it sustainable. That means it should be something you can keep doing in terms of scale, frequency, and period. Let's go through each of these points one by one, starting from last to first. So let's first talk about period. In setting out to do a daily project, it's more helpful to give yourself a clear endpoint after which you are no longer on the hook. For how long do you want to do the project? How long do you think you can realistically keep it up? A year? A month? Maybe just a week? This is the period. Depending on the scale of your daily project, you may want to keep the period relatively short. We'll get more into scale in a bit, but here's an example from one of the classes I teach on Skillshare called the Style class. The project for this class is to do a daily illustration project for 26 days. Now in the class project, the illustrations are more intense and full on, and I doubt many people would be able to sustain pumping these out for a whole year if they were to do it every day. But the fact that there's a definite endpoint to the project and a lowish number to achieve, there's only 26 illustrations to do, this makes the whole thing a bit more doable. I'm not saying doing 26 full illustrations as your daily project is easy. I'm just saying there's a clear endpoint, and when it's done, it's done. Okay, so we talked about period, now let's talk about frequency. Since we're talking about a daily project here, the frequency is already kind of baked in here. It's going to be every day, that's the frequency. But maybe you can be more loose with the idea of a daily project. So remember here, we're talking about making your project sustainable, something you can do for a longer period of time. Perhaps a more reasonable frequency for you then is maybe every other day or once a week or even once monthly. Again, you can set the frequency based on the scale of your project and how ambitious it is. If you're working on larger illustrations or oil paintings for each piece, for instance, you'll probably want to go with a lower frequency. Even though I call the project in the style class a daily project, most students take much longer to complete their 26 illustrations. If you can't commit to a regular frequency or even a set period, one option is simply to have a set number of pieces to create and work toward that. That's sort of what my 26-day class project ended up being like for many students. The only problem with this is that you're less likely to keep up the momentum if you don't also set up some kind of dedicated schedule and a deadline. And that means setting a frequency and a period to complete it. A lot of the students who are working on the projects in my class, many of them get to about halfway and then they give up. And I'll be honest, I did this for myself. There was no deadline and no set frequency, and so I just haven't completed it yet. Okay, so we're talking about making your project something you can sustain over the long term. And so we've talked about setting a period and a frequency that works for you. Now let's talk about scale. The last way of making your project sustainable over the long term is to keep the scale manageable. Of period, frequency, and scale, I think scale is the most important one to consider. You want your project to be small enough to be able to do it regularly, but big enough to be challenging. Going back to my workout routine example, I could make my workouts smaller, but that would cease to make them very useful. I need workouts that push me and actually make me stronger. Doing 20 reps of 10-pound weights won't be too dreadful for me, but they're also not really going to make me stronger. On the other hand, I'm not going to show up for my workouts at all if they're too much for me, if I really dread them because they're too ambitious. So I keep my workouts to about 30 minutes or less, but I also make them intense enough that I'm sweating by the end. Now, in my actual daily drawing project, I've kept the scale super minimal. My only goal is to draw from observation for 5 minutes. I've landed on this magic number of 5 minutes because I know that drawing with simple tools, a pencil and a sketchbook, needs almost no prep time, and I can actually get quite a lot out of 5 minutes of drawing. I also know that by promising myself just 5 minutes a day, I'll more willingly enter into the exercise and not feel like it's going to cut into the rest of my day. And almost invariably, I spend more like 10 or 15 minutes anyway. It's kind of a mind trick. Like I trick myself into drawing by saying it's only going to take 5 minutes, but then once I get into it, I actually can't stop myself. So just to summarize this point about sustainability, scale, frequency, and period are all parameters that you can adjust to make your project more doable or sustainable over the long haul. Okay, so the last tip here, the third tip, is tie your daily project to a bigger purpose. One thing we need to ask about anything optional in life is why do it at all? After all, nobody's forcing you to make something every day. If you're going to do a daily illustration project, you're going to need a reason that's good enough to hold up under the strongest resistance, which will 100% show up at some point. It might be a week in or a few months in, it might be 2 minutes in, but after your initial enthusiasm fades away, there will be many good reasons why you should quit. So the strongest resistance point we're gonna face is the feeling that we don't have time. Like out of all the things we need to do in a given day, whether it's for work or for life, why would we spend time on a daily illustration project, especially after the initial enthusiasm is gone? And sometimes, that feeling is justified. Sometimes it's actually a good reason not to do our project on a given day. But we don't need a good reason to fall off the daily project wagon. Sometimes we fall off because we just don't see the point anymore. We don't care. I've started a lot of projects that just become irrelevant to me, and I'd rather do almost anything than that project. And that's why I think we need to set a bigger purpose for our project. So what we want to do at the beginning is set up a reason to show up that's stronger than any potential reason not to. Back on the workout thing, like, man, I do not want to show up to my workouts most of the time, like 99% of the time. But then I think about why I work out. I'm not a naturally strong person, so I know that if I'm not doing some kind of regular strength training, I feel weak. If I'm honest, I also just like my body more when I'm, giving it a little bit of muscular definition. I'm not saying I'm jacked, but my rib cage is a little less visible when I'm regularly throwing down some push-ups. So for me, feeling and looking strong is one reason why I work out, and the fear of going back to feeling and looking weak keeps me showing up to my workouts. But on a more positive note, my simple workouts do help me do something that I much more enjoy, which is running. For whatever reason, I enjoy running, say like for 4 hours at a time, a lot more than feeling my arms burn in a 20-minute strength yoga session. And guess what makes me a stronger runner? Stronger abs and arms. And so that's my bigger purpose for my workouts. They help me to do something that I really enjoy. When setting up your daily project, ask yourself, to what purpose? How can your daily project make you stronger in bigger areas of your practice? Being specific here helps as well. My 5-minute drawings from observation are to strengthen me overall as an illustrator. Drawing from life helps me be more attentive and detail-oriented in my art, even though my style is pretty stylized and non-literal. It also helps me to keep a fresh inventory of things to draw from without having to look at reference images. And freedom from having to use references in my illustration work is a huge lifelong pursuit for me. These are bigger purposes that I can say, when resistance is strong, this is why I'm gonna sit down and draw for 5 minutes. What you don't want is to tie your daily project to someone else's goals. Your daily project needs to be something you want to do, even if you sometimes don't, because you know it will help you get closer to where you want to be. So as you're looking for inspiration for a daily project, be thoughtful about how much you're influenced by another's. Don't hold yourself up to the same standard or try to do exactly what someone else is doing. Give yourself room to be you and to discover more of who you are through the project. Now, before we close this off, I mentioned earlier that our daily projects shouldn't just feel like discipline. They should feel absolutely necessary. And not just necessary. I think we should enjoy something about the thing we're gonna do regularly. But whether we are enjoying what we're doing in our daily projects, over time it's gonna become less important to us than whether we think it matters. I think the romance will fade. We'll get less excited about doing the daily project. And at that point, it will become a choice. Do we keep going or do we quit? We want to make our daily projects something not just that we enjoy, but something that's indispensable to our growth and success as illustrators. Otherwise we truly should ask ourselves, why do it at all? So those are my 3 tips for how to have more success with your daily projects. Now, to quickly recap, we talked about first being specific about your goals. Then we talked about making your goals more sustainable, and there we talked about period, frequency, and scale. And lastly, we want to tie our goals to a bigger purpose. But I have one last thought about setting specific goals and making them sustainable, and that's this: making them reachable. I'm thinking about my archery metaphor and thinking about how the archer is positioned in relation to the target. The archer might be a good shot and the target may be well defined, but they have to be the right distance apart. If the target is too far away, the arrows will always fall short, but if the target is too close, there's really no challenge or benefit to the archer. So when you're setting up the specifics of your daily drawing or illustration goal, and you're thinking about things like scale and purpose, be sure to set these things in a way that provides a balance of being within your range on the one hand and being challenging enough to actually improve on the other. If you're not setting goals that are challenging enough for you, you're probably gonna get bored. And if you're not bored, your audience might be. On the other hand, if you're setting goals that are too far beyond you, perhaps requiring skills that you don't quite have yet, you'll never land a shot and you'll give up trying right away. Life is always about balance, and setting up your daily illustration project is no different. So at the beginning of the episode, I asked you to reflect on whether your last daily project failed, and if it was because of a lack of specificity, or because it wasn't sustainable, or because you stopped seeing the point. Now, having gone through these tips, what would you do differently? Are you motivated to start a new daily project? What I hope is that you at least feel more confident about setting your next daily project up for success. The good news is that there are so many project prompts out there to choose from, and if you can't think of something yourself, just as one example, try giving drawing challenges on Instagram a look. I'll leave a link to that in the video description. That's just something I want to help you get started with. This account posts on all of the newest drawing challenges and hashtags, and so they present a boatload of options for anyone looking for some inspiration for their daily project. If you're looking for something more beefy and maybe a bit more short term, I of course highly recommend my own class, the style class. But don't take my word for it. Just look up the hashtag, the style class illustration on Instagram to find thousands of amazing illustrations by students doing the 26-day project from the class. To learn more, visit tomfroese.com/teaching and you'll find links to the style class as well as to all my other classes. If you happen to find any of my tips today helpful, please be sure to hit that like button. Of course, hit subscribe if you want to be in the know every time I launch a video. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. I'll see you in the next video.